The air inside the great arena trembled with the sound of thousands of alien voices. A circle of metal walls rose high above the sand, glowing faintly from the heat of the twin suns. This was not Earth. This was Vale Prime, the homeworld of the Dominion, and today it would witness a fight that would decide the fate of two civilizations. In the center of the arena stood a human, Captain Marcus Hale, officer of Earth's defense fleet. His armor was scratched and simple compared to the gleaming plates worn by his opponent, but his posture was steady. He gripped a short, heavy blade crafted from Vale steel, a weapon too heavy for most humans to wield for long. Yet Marcus held it with both hands, eyes calm, breathing measured. Across from him towered the alien warlord Krathor, champion of the Vale Dominion. His body was built like living stone, muscles layered over a frame nearly twice the size of a man. His crimson armor shone beneath the sun, and his great battle axe hummed with energy. Krathor had fought in 100 duels and never once lost. The scars across his chest told stories of wars fought among the stars. Today he would either win again, or his people would be bound by law to surrender their claim over Earth. The High Council of the Dominion had called this duel the Trial of Honor, an ancient tradition. When negotiations between species reached a dead end, champions would fight in the arena. The winner's people would dictate the terms of peace. It was brutal, unfair, and terrifying. But it was also law. Marcus had not been chosen because he was the strongest soldier in Earth's fleet. He had been chosen because he was the only one who volunteered. Many of his fellow officers had begged him not to. The odds were too high. But Marcus believed that if humanity wanted respect among the stars, someone had to show that humans were not afraid. As the signal horns echoed across the arena, silence fell. The entire Dominion had come to watch. Enormous holograms displayed the two fighters for the millions watching from distant worlds. Krathor lifted his axe and roared, a sound like rolling thunder. "Human, you should have stayed in the shadows of your small world. Today your kind will learn fear." Marcus raised his blade, his voice steady. "Or today, your people will learn that humans don't break so easily." The battle began. Krathor charged with the speed of a falling comet. His axe swung in a wide arc, sending a blast of hot wind across the sand. Marcus ducked and rolled to the side, the weapon missing him by inches but leaving a deep crack in the arena floor. The crowd shouted in unison, a storm of alien voices echoing in the walls. Marcus knew he could not win by matching strength. Krathor was too powerful, too fast. But Marcus had studied the Warlord's previous fights. He knew Krathor fought with pride, with confidence that his strength alone was enough. That was where Marcus found his chance. Every step he took was measured, every dodge precise. Krathor swung again and again, each strike powerful enough to break stone, but Marcus slipped away, never letting himself be caught. The crowd jeered at first, calling him coward, calling him weak. But Marcus ignored them. He was not here for glory. He was here to survive. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Sweat dripped down Marcus's face inside his helmet, his arms aching from the weight of the blade he barely swung. Instead, he waited. He let Krathor's anger grow. The Warlord's attacks became faster, harsher, less controlled. Finally, Krathor swung too wide, his axe buried deep into the cracked floor for a heartbeat too long. Marcus seized the moment. He rushed forward, blade striking across the gap in Krathor's armor near his shoulder. The cut was shallow, but it drew blood. The arena gasped. A human had wounded the Warlord. Krathor ripped his axe free and roared again, this time in fury. He charged like a beast, his strikes furious and reckless. Marcus was driven back, forced to block with the flat of his blade, his arms shaking from the impact. The blows nearly crushed him, yet he held on, retreating step by step. But Marcus had achieved what he wanted. The Warlord was no longer calm. He was enraged. As the fight wore on, Marcus began to change his rhythm. Instead of running, he started countering. Each time Krathor swung, Marcus twisted away and struck at the weak points of his armor. An elbow joint, a knee, a gap beneath the arm. None of the wounds were fatal, but each one slowed the Warlord just a little more. The crowd's chants shifted. Some still roared for Krathor, but others began to cheer for the human who refused to fall. Blood stained the sand. Krathor's breathing grew harsh, his movements heavy. Marcus too was exhausted, his muscles burning, but he forced himself to keep moving. Finally, the moment came. Krathor raised his axe high for a killing strike, his chest exposed. Marcus gathered the last of his strength and lunged forward. His blade pierced deep into the warlord's side, driving past armor and into flesh. Crathor staggered. His axe fell from his hands, crashing into the sand. The giant alien dropped to one knee, clutching at the wound. Silence fell across the arena. The warlord looked at Marcus, his eyes burning not with hatred but with something else. Respect. "Human, you have defeated me." His voice was heavy, but it carried across the arena. Then Crathor collapsed, his body striking the ground like thunder. The crowd erupted. Some screamed in rage, others shouted in disbelief, but the High Council raised their voices above all. "The duel is finished. By the law of our people, the victor is Captain Marcus Hale of Earth." Marcus stood in the center of the arena, gasping for breath, barely able to keep his blade in hand. He had done the impossible. He had defeated the warlord of the Dominion. Yet as the cheers and cries filled the air, a new voice rang out from the council's platform. "By our ancient tradition, the one who defeats the warlord inherits his title, his duties, and his bloodline. The human will now take the place of Crathor as leader of his house." The words struck Marcus harder than any blow. He was no conqueror, no ruler, he was just a soldier. But before he could argue, the council continued. He must also honor the family bond. "The victor shall marry the daughters of the warlord as law demands." The crowd cheered again, this time with wild excitement. 3 figures stepped into view on the far side of the platform. 3 tall, elegant alien women, their faces unreadable. They were Crathor's daughters. Marcus felt his heart sink. He had come to fight for Earth's freedom. He had never expected this. As the sun set over the arena, Marcus realized his victory had only led him into a new challenge, one that no blade could solve. The arena was empty now. The crowd had left, and the sand still bore the marks of the battle. The broken ground where Crathor had fallen glowed faintly under the twin moons. Captain Marcus Hale stood near the gates, his armor heavy with dust and blood. Victory should have felt like relief, but instead, it weighed on him like a chain. The High Council's words still echoed in his mind. "The victor shall inherit the warlord's title and marry his daughters." Marcus had not expected honor. He had not even expected survival. Yet somehow, by strategy, luck, and stubborn human grit, he had brought down the undefeatable warlord. Now, instead of returning to Earth as a free soldier, he was bound by the traditions of an alien empire. A veil guard approached, his tall form shining in silver armor. "The council summons you. The daughters of Crathor await." Marcus clenched his fists but gave no protest. Fighting the council now would undo everything he had won for Earth. He followed the guard through the great halls of the Dominion's citadel, where walls rose like black crystal and alien flames burned in high bowls. At the end of a long corridor, doors carved with the warlord's crest opened. Inside was a grand chamber lit by the glow of stars through tall windows. 3 figures stood together, their presence commanding, each different in manner but united by the blood of Crathor. They were the daughters. The eldest, Serenia, stepped forward first. She wore armor lighter than her father's, but her bearing was sharper than steel. Her dark eyes studied Marcus with the same calculation he had seen in military officers back on Earth. She gave no greeting, only a measured silence that carried its own weight. Beside her stood Liara, the second daughter. Unlike her sister, she carried no calm. Her hand rested on the hilt of a curved blade, and her stance spoke of impatience, even hostility. Her eyes burned with the same fire her father had shown in battle. The youngest, Alira, stood a little apart. She wore no armor, only robes lined with glowing threads of energy. A cluster of data spheres floated around her hands, shining softly as they shifted in the air. She looked at Marcus not with anger or suspicion, but with quiet curiosity, as though he were a puzzle she had yet to solve. The silence stretched until Serenia finally spoke. Her voice was calm, cold, and formal. "By law you are now the victor. By law you are bound to us. But know this, human, law is not choice. We do not welcome this union." Marcus let the words settle. He bowed his head slightly, showing respect but not submission. "I understand. I did not come here to claim titles or bonds. I fought only to protect my people." Liara stepped forward, her blade glinting in the starlight. "Then you should have died in the arena. Better that than to trap us in this shame." Marcus's hand twitched near his weapon, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I didn't choose this law, and I won't force myself upon it. But if we must share this fate, then perhaps we can find a way through it together." Serenia studied him again, as if measuring every word for weakness. Alira tilted her head, her spheres humming faintly. Liara only scoffed and turned away, muttering in their native tongue. That night, Marcus was given chambers within the citadel. They were vast, lined with alien designs and filled with luxuries meant for rulers, not soldiers. But Marcus did not rest. He sat by the window staring at the alien city below. Towers rose like black spears, their lights flickering in strange colors. Ships glided through the sky like silent predators. He thought of Earth, of the oceans, the forests, the blue sky he might never see again. He thought of his crew who had believed he would return victorious. To them, victory meant freedom. To him, it meant captivity under a different name. The sound of the door opening broke his thoughts. Alira stepped inside, the youngest daughter. Her spheres floated around her, glowing softly. "You do not sleep," she said, her voice quiet but curious. Marcus gave a faint smile. "Hard to sleep when you fought a warlord in the afternoon and been told you're married by evening." Alira tilted her head again, studying him. "You fought not with strength but with thought. You watched. You waited. That is not how our kind fights. That is why you won." Marcus shrugged. "Humans fight in many ways. We don't always have the strength to match others, so we find another path." For a moment there was silence. Then Alira asked softly, "Do you hate this bond as much as my sisters do?" Marcus looked out the window again. "I don't hate you. I don't even hate your people. But I hate that none of us had a choice." Alira's eyes softened, though her words remained measured. "Perhaps choice will come later. For now, law binds us. But law is not always forever." Before Marcus could reply, Alira turned and left, her spheres following like silent stars. The next day, the council held a gathering in the Hall of Voices. Representatives of the Dominion's great houses sat in tiers of black stone, their eyes glowing in the half-darkness. Marcus stood at the center, the daughters behind him. The High Speaker rose. "The duel has ended. The human has claimed victory. By law, he holds Krathor's title and bonds." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some voices held anger, others doubt. A few even spoke of curiosity. The Dominion had always respected strength, and though Marcus was an outsider, he had defeated their strongest. A rival lord rose from his seat, his voice sharp. "This is a disgrace. A human ruling among us. He will break our traditions, weaken our people. This bond with the daughters is a mockery." Liara stepped forward before Marcus could speak. Her voice rang out like steel. "Mockery? He defeated Krathor in open combat. Would you call our father weak? Would you dishonor his law?" The hall grew quiet. Even Marcus was surprised by her defense, though her eyes still burned with anger when she looked at him. Serenia added, her voice calm. "Law binds him. He did not ask for this, but he did not run from it either. That too is strength." The High Speaker nodded slowly. "So it shall stand. The human is bound. Let the houses respect the law." The decision was final. Marcus was trapped deeper in this new life. Yet within that trap, something had shifted. Liara had defended him, if only out of loyalty to law. Serenia had spoken of strength. Alira had shown curiosity. The daughters did not want this union, but neither were they his enemies. That evening, Marcus found himself walking through the Citadel's gardens. Strange trees with crystal leaves glowed faintly, and streams of silver water wound through the paths. It was peaceful, far from the arena's roar. Serenia approached him, her steps quiet, her expression serious. "You must understand something, human. Our people respect only strength. If you appear weak, the houses will strike against you. They already whisper. Some want you dead," Marcus nodded slowly. "Then I'll have to prove I'm more than a lucky fighter." Serenia's gaze hardened, but there was the smallest trace of approval in her eyes. "If you survive what is coming, perhaps we can speak of choice again. Until then, remember, our father's death did not end his enemies. It only fed them." Marcus watched her leave, her armor gleaming under the garden lights. The weight of his victory pressed down heavier than ever. He had not just defeated a warlord. He had inherited his enemies, his responsibilities, and his family. And the greatest challenge was yet to come. The citadel stood high above the alien city, its black walls glimmering faintly under the twin moons. To the people of Vale, it was a symbol of power, but to Marcus Hale it felt more like a prison. His chambers were large and filled with luxuries, but freedom was nowhere to be found. Days had passed since the duel with Krathor. Marcus still carried the weight of victory, but not as glory, more like a burden. Everywhere he went, alien eyes followed him. Some were filled with curiosity, others with hatred. He had taken down the greatest warrior of their people, and though law said he was now their leader, many could not accept it. The daughters, too, lived under this shadow. Sirenia remained distant, spending hours studying battle maps and speaking with generals. Liara trained endlessly in the practice yards, her fury driving every strike. Alira wandered the archives, her mind lost in data and old records. None of them spoke much to Marcus unless forced to, but he could sense the tension binding them all. It was only a matter of time before someone tested him. The test came one night. Marcus was in the Citadel Gardens again, a place he found calmer than the dark halls. The silver streams glowed softly, and the crystal-leafed trees shimmered under starlight. He thought of Earth, of green forests, real rivers, the quiet of night filled with familiar stars. Here everything felt sharp and alien. He heard footsteps behind him. "You should not walk alone," came Sirenia's voice. Marcus turned. She stood tall in light armor, her expression as unreadable as ever. "I thought even rulers deserve a little air," Marcus said. "Air will not stop a blade," she replied coldly. Before Marcus could answer, shadows shifted among the trees. Figures cloaked in dark armor leapt forward, blades flashing in the moonlight. Assassins. The first came at Marcus from the side, but his reflexes were sharp. He raised his arm, blocking with the vambrace of his armor, then shoved the attacker back. Another came from behind, but Sirenia's sword flashed, striking the assassin down before he reached Marcus. The garden erupted into chaos. 4, 5, 6 enemies surrounded them, their movements fast and trained. Marcus fought with the heavy veil blade he carried, its weight familiar after long practice. He dodged low, striking one in the leg, then spun to block another's attack. Sirenia fought with precision, every strike aimed to kill. But Marcus was no stranger to danger. His years in Earth's defense fleet had taught him how to survive when outnumbered. He used footwork to keep moving, never letting the assassins surround him completely. His blade struck not with strength but with timing. Even so, the fight was brutal. An enemy slashed his arm, cutting through armor, and pain flared. Sirenia took a cut across her shoulder but did not falter. The clash of steel echoed through the garden, drowning the peaceful streams. Then Liara arrived. She stormed into the fight like a storm made flesh, her curved blade spinning in deadly arcs. Her strikes carried raw fury, cutting down an assassin before he even turned to face her. She fought with fire, every blow breaking the rhythm of the attackers. "Assassins dare enter our home," she roared, cutting another down. Together, the three of them began to push back the attackers. Marcus fought with calm focus, Sirenia with precision, and Liara with rage. Slowly, the assassins realized their ambush was failing. One tried to flee, but Liara cut him down before he reached the wall. Another tried to leap for Marcus, but Sirenia's blade stopped him mid-air. The last assassin faced Marcus directly. For a moment, the two circled in silence, the silver water flowing at their feet. Then the assassin lunged. Marcus dodged left, twisted his blade, and struck clean across the attacker's chest. The figure fell motionless. The garden fell silent again, save for the sound of breathing. Sirenia lowered her weapon, scanning the bodies. They were trained, not common killers. Someone powerful sent them. Liara spat on the ground. Cowards. If they want him dead, they should face him in the open. Marcus wiped his blade, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Who would risk breaking your law like this? Sirenia's eyes narrowed. Rival houses. Many do not accept you. They see you as weakness. If you die, the bond ends and they can claim power for themselves. Liara growled, slamming her blade back into its sheath. Then let them come. I will cut down anyone who dares. Marcus looked at the sisters. For the first time, he saw not just resentment in their eyes, but something else, respect. They had fought side by side, and battle had forged a fragile connection. The next day, the council was in uproar. News of the assassination attempt spread quickly. Some demanded punishment for the rival houses. Others claimed Marcus had staged the attack to gain sympathy. The hall filled with angry voices, accusations, and denials. Marcus stood in the center, the daughters behind him. He could feel the weight of every eye. He raised his voice, steady and strong. Last night, blades came for me in the dark. But they did not just come for me, they came for your law. I did not write your traditions. But I fought by them. I bled by them. And now I am bound by them. If you let assassins tear down that law, then what does it mean to any of you? The hall grew quiet. Even the loudest critics held their tongues. The truth of his words echoed in the chamber. Serenia stepped forward beside him. The human speaks true. The law binds us whether we like it or not. To ignore it now is to spit on our own honor, Liara added, fire in her voice. And if any seek his blood again, they will find my blade waiting. The council finally quieted, though their eyes still burned with suspicion. The High Speaker gave a slow nod. Then it is decided. An investigation will begin. Until then, the human stands. Let none break the law again. That night, Marcus returned to his chambers weary but alive. He sat by the window staring at the alien stars. His body ached, his wounds burned, but his mind was restless. He had survived the duel, survived an assassination, and now stood at the heart of a storm he barely understood. A soft knock came at his door. When it opened, Alira entered. Her spheres floated around her, glowing faintly. I heard what happened, she said gently. You stood in the hall as though you belonged there. Even Serenia and Liara, they stood with you. Marcus gave a tired smile. Strange, isn't it? A week ago, they wanted nothing to do with me. Now we bleed together in gardens and halls. Alira sat across from him, her eyes thoughtful. Sometimes choice is not given, but what we do within the bond, that is ours. You could have stayed silent in the hall. Instead, you spoke with courage. Perhaps that is why they stood with you. Marcus leaned back, staring out at the towers beyond. I don't know where this leads, Alira, but I know one thing: I can't do this alone. Not against assassins, not against councils, not against the weight of your father's enemies. Alira's spheres hummed softly. Then perhaps you are not alone anymore. Her words hung in the air, gentle but powerful. Marcus realized that something was changing. The daughters no longer saw him only as the outsider forced upon them. Slowly, painfully, they were beginning to see him as something else. A partner, perhaps even a leader. Yet he knew the shadows of betrayal had only just begun to rise. The Dominion was no longer quiet. The assassination attempt in the gardens had been only the beginning. Rumors spread across Vale Prime like fire in dry grass. Whispers of rebellion, of rival houses preparing to rise. Ships moved in secret across the stars. Weapons were forged in hidden forges, and voices called for the end of the human pretender who had taken the Warlord's place. Captain Marcus Hale felt the storm gathering each day. The halls of the Citadel grew colder, the council's debates sharper. He had been a soldier all his life, but this was different. Battles were simple compared to politics. Here every word carried a blade's edge. The daughters felt it too. Serenia studied maps of star systems until her eyes burned. Liara trained the guards and soldiers with merciless discipline. Alira spent nights deep in the archives, searching through the Dominion's history for wisdom that might save them. Each sister worked in her own way, but together they built a fragile wall against the chaos. Marcus knew it would not be enough. The rebellion was coming. The first strike came on the outer colonies. A fleet of warships loyal to a rival house fell upon Dominion outposts. They did not declare their banner, but made their purpose clear. They sought to break the new order before it could take root. News arrived in the council hall. Voices erupted in rage and fear. Some demanded a counterattack, others wanted to wait, and many secretly hoped the rebellion would succeed so they could seize power afterward. Marcus stood before them, calm but firm. If we do nothing, the Dominion falls apart. If we fight divided, we will lose. But if we fight together, Vale and human, we can stop this rebellion before it spreads. The council argued, but Serenia stepped forward. He speaks the truth. I have studied their fleets. They strike fast and vanish, but they are not invincible. If we unite our forces and strike their supply lines, we can weaken them before facing them head-on. Liara added, her voice sharp with fire. And I will lead the warriors. Let the rebels see that our father's bloodline still fights with strength. Even Alira raised her voice. I have studied the old sciences. I can shield our ships from their first attacks. With time, I can make their weapons useless. The council finally quieted. For the first time, the daughters spoke not against Marcus, but with him. The High Speaker gave a slow nod. Very well. We will give you command, human. But if you fail, it will be the end of you, and of us all. The war began. Marcus stood on the bridge of a Dominion warship, armored and steady. Around him moved both human officers from his fleet and Vale commanders from the Dominion. It was a strange sight. Two species working side by side, once enemies, now allies. The rebellion struck again, but this time they found resistance waiting. Serenia's strategies led the fleets into ambushes, using the enemy's speed against them. Liara led ground forces in brutal clashes on burning worlds, her blade cutting through chaos as soldiers rallied to her call. Alira's shields glowed around ships, turning deadly weapons aside and giving their allies hope. And Marcus, he held it all together. His orders carried weight not because of law, but because his people trusted him. He listened to advice, he cared for the wounded, and he never asked of others what he would not risk himself. Slowly, even those who had doubted began to see him not as an outsider, but as a leader. But the rebellion did not break easily. Weeks turned to months. Battles spread across star systems, and every victory seemed to bring new enemies. Marcus knew the truth. The rebels were united under a hidden leader, one who now revealed himself. Lord Vedran. He was one of Krathor's oldest rivals, a commander known for cunning and cruelty. He had waited for the Warlord's fall, and now he moved to claim the dominion for himself. His fleets were vast, his followers loyal, and his hatred of humans absolute. When news came that Vedran was marching with his full strength toward Vale Prime, the council nearly broke into panic. Marcus stood before them. This is it. If we lose here, the dominion falls. If we win, the rebellion ends. The daughters stood with him. Serenia's voice was calm but strong. We will not run. Liara struck her blade against the floor. We will not bow. Alira lifted her spheres, glowing brighter than ever. We will not be broken. The final battle began above the skies of Vale Prime. The stars filled with fire as fleets clashed, lasers and plasma tearing across the darkness. Marcus commanded from the flagship, his voice carrying through comms to both humans and Vale. Hold the line. Remember what we fight for, not just law, but a future we choose. Serenia directed the fleets with brilliant precision, trapping enemy squadrons in crossfire, turning their speed into weakness. Liara boarded enemy vessels with strike teams, her blade cutting through rebels as she fought at the front lines. Alira's shields held against weapons that should have shattered them, her science outmatching the rebels' fury. Yet the enemy was vast, and the battle raged without end. Ships fell, flames lit the void, and still Vedran pressed forward. His flagship, a monstrous vessel armed with ancient weapons, cut through allies like a predator among prey. Marcus knew the truth. If we don't stop Vedran himself, none of this matters. He gave the order. His ship broke formation, driving straight toward the enemy flagship. The daughters, each in their roles, guided him, Serenia clearing a path with fleets, Liara rallying soldiers to hold the line, Alira strengthening the shields for the final approach. The clash came within the enemy flagship's halls. Marcus led a small team aboard, his blade ready. The corridors were dark, filled with enemy guards. He fought his way through step by step, until at last he reached the great chamber at the heart of the ship. There, waiting for him, stood Lord Vedran. Tall, armored in black, his eyes burned with hate. His voice echoed like thunder. So the human who killed Krathor dares face me. You are nothing but weakness made flesh. I will crush you and end this insult forever. Marcus lifted his blade. You may be stronger, but strength without honor leads only to ruin. The duel began. Vedran struck with savage power, his weapon crashing against Marcus's blade. Each blow rattled through Marcus's arms, threatening to shatter bone. The rebel lord fought with raw fury. Every strike meant to end the fight in a single swing. Marcus could not match him in strength. But he remembered Krathor. He remembered patience, timing, and using the enemy's pride against them. He dodged, rolled, struck at weak points. Each move cost him pain, but slowly, steadily, he began to wear Vedran down. Outside, the battle raged. Serenia's strategies held the fleets together. Liara's fury kept the soldiers fighting. Alira's shield saved countless lives. All of it led to this moment. At last, Vedran raised his weapon high for a killing strike. Marcus, battered and bleeding, saw his chance. He stepped inside the arc of the swing, driving his blade deep into Vedran's chest. The rebel lord staggered, disbelief in his eyes. Marcus held his gaze and said, "This ends now, not with hate, but with choice." Then Vedran fell, his weapon clattering to the floor. The enemy fleet faltered. With their leader gone, their unity broke. Some fled, others surrendered, and the battle turned. The Dominion's forces pressed forward, driving the rebels back until the skies of Vale Prime were clear again. Marcus stood on the enemy flagship's bridge, exhausted but alive. Through comms, he heard the cheers of soldiers, both human and Vale. The rebellion was broken, but Marcus knew this was not just victory in war. This was proof that humans could stand not as subjects, not as outsiders, but as equals among the stars. The fires of war slowly faded, but the scars remained. The skies above Vale Prime still glowed with the wreckage of shattered ships, silent reminders of the battle that had nearly torn the Dominion apart. Across the capital, the people mourned their dead and repaired their cities, while whispers of hope began to spread. For the first time in generations, victory had come not through fear or domination, but through unity. A human and the daughters of Crathor had led them to survival. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the Citadel's highest balcony, looking over the city. His body still bore bruises and cuts from his duel with Lord Vadran, but his spirit remained steady. He had fought countless battles in his life, but this felt different. The Dominion was no longer an enemy camp or a battlefield. It was becoming something more, something worth protecting. Behind him, the three daughters approached. Serenia moved with her usual grace, scrolls of star maps in her hands. Liara's armor clinked as she walked, her blade still at her side even in peace. Alira carried a sphere of light, though now it shone softly instead of blinding bright. They joined Marcus at the balcony, gazing at the city below. "It feels strange," Serenia said quietly. "For so long the Dominion was built on fear, but now the people cheer, not for a warlord, but for something new." Liara gave a small laugh. "They cheer for survival. Let us not forget how close we came to losing everything." Alira tilted her head. "Yet survival is not enough. We must give them a reason to believe in tomorrow." Marcus nodded. "You're right. The war is over, but the real test begins now." The council called for a great assembly, the largest in the Dominion's history. Leaders from across the stars, warriors, scholars, and common folk gathered in the grand chamber. For once, all eyes turned not only to the council seats, but to Marcus and the daughters who stood beside him. The High Speaker raised his voice. "The rebellion is crushed. The Dominion lives, but we must now decide how it will live. By the old law, the human who defeated Warlord Crathor was bound to marry his daughters and rule in his place. Yet law is not stone, it can be broken or it can be remade. What say you, people of the Dominion?" Murmurs filled the chamber. Some shouted that the old law must remain. Others demanded change. The air grew heavy with tension. Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "I never sought to be your warlord. I never sought a crown or a throne, but I will not walk away from what we have built together. The law must change, not to bind us in chains of the past, but to give us freedom to shape the future." Serenia added, her tone calm but firm. "Unity saved us. Not law, not tradition, unity. If we cling to the old ways, we will fall again." Liara's voice thundered across the chamber. "Strength is not found in forcing loyalty. Strength is found when people choose to stand together. We must build on that." And Alira, glowing softly with her sphere, spoke last. "I have studied our history. Every empire that ruled by fear has collapsed. If we want to endure, we must build something different, something based on trust." The chamber fell silent. Slowly, one by one, voices began to rise in agreement. The tide shifted, and soon the hall echoed not with division but with a chant for change. The High Speaker raised his hands. "Then let it be done. The old law is broken. A new charter shall be written. The Dominion shall no longer be ruled by one warlord, but by a council of leaders chosen by both tradition and trust. And Captain Marcus Hale, though human, shall serve not as conqueror, but as guardian of the Dominion." The chamber erupted in cheers. Days turned into weeks as the Dominion reshaped itself. The new council was formed, made of both human and Vale representatives. Trade routes reopened, treaties were signed, and new schools of science and learning were founded. For the first time, knowledge and progress became as important as weapons. Marcus spent his days balancing the work of peace and defense. He visited colonies scarred by war, spoke with soldiers and workers, and made sure that promises were kept. Wherever he went, he did not act as a ruler, but as someone who served the people. Serenia became the Dominion's chief strategist, not only for war but for rebuilding. She planned new star routes, safe passages, and economic reforms. She saw patterns where others saw only chaos, guiding the Dominion with her keen mind. Liara continued to train warriors, but with a new purpose. She taught them not to fight for conquest, but to defend the weak and preserve peace. Her fiery spirit inspired young recruits who once dreamed of glory, but now sought honor instead. Alira became the voice of science and knowledge. She founded the Great Archive, a place where discoveries were shared freely. Her work with human scientists led to breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and exploration. She gave the Dominion hope for a brighter tomorrow. Together, the four stood as a symbol, not of domination but of unity between species. Yet peace was not simple. Rival houses still whispered in shadows. Old wounds did not heal overnight. Some despised the idea of a human holding power. Others feared that trust could never last. One night, Marcus sat alone in the Citadel's quiet hall, thinking of the burden he carried. He had fought wars before, but this was harder. How could one man, even with allies, hold together an empire born of blood and conquest? Serenia found him there. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You doubt yourself. That is good. Only fools believe they are always right." Liara entered, her voice steady. "But remember this, you do not carry this alone. We stand with you." Alira smiled softly, her light glowing around them. "And so do the people. You have given them hope. That is stronger than any weapon." Marcus looked at them, the daughters of the warlord he had once fought, now his closest allies. He realized that unity was not just a word for the people. It was real, forged through trust, sacrifice, and choice. Months later, a new festival was held on Vale Prime. For the first time in centuries, it was not a festival of war or conquest, but of peace. The streets filled with humans and Vale walking side by side, sharing food, stories, and laughter. Children of both species played together, free from the weight of old hatreds. At the heart of the festival, Marcus and the daughters stood on a platform as the people gathered. The high speaker addressed the crowd. "Today we celebrate not just victory but rebirth. The Dominion is no longer a chain of oppression. It is a union of voices, a place where different worlds can stand together. And we owe this chance to those who chose trust over fear: Captain Marcus Hale, Serenia, Liara, and Alira." The crowd erupted in cheers. Marcus stepped forward, raising his voice so all could hear. "This is only the beginning. The future will not be easy. There will be trials, doubts, and dangers yet to come. But we face them not as enemies, not as strangers, but as one people. Remember this, unity is our strength, and as long as we hold to it, no power in the stars can break us." The cheers grew louder, rolling through the city like thunder. That night, as the festival lights filled the sky, Marcus stood once more on the Citadel balcony. The daughters joined him, watching the stars together. Serenia whispered, "A new age begins tonight." Liara nodded, resting her hand on her blade. "And we will protect it." Alira smiled, her sphere glowing like a star. "For the first time, I believe the Dominion will endure." Marcus looked out at the horizon, where the dawn of a new day was just beginning to rise. He felt the weight of his journey, the battles fought, the trials endured, the choices made. And he knew this was not the end, but the start of something greater. The Warlord's law had bound him by force, but unity had set him free. And in that freedom, a new Dominion had been born.